Welcome back to my BN4 Mono-Soul Challenge Run series. In these BN4 runs, I play through the game starting on a fresh save file up until the first duo fight, while using patch cards to keep one double soul active for the entirety of the run. These patch cards let me permanently use a double soul, but also give me an annoying HP bug that rapidly drains my health down to just 1 HP. In addition, my folders are limited to chips that fit the theme of a double soul. For example, I can only use fire chips with fire soul, or wood chips with wood soul. Today, we'll be looking at my run with one of the best double souls available in BN4, Search Soul. This is a run that I've been looking forward to for a while, though coming up with a rule set for it was a bit difficult. We'll get into that in a second, but first, let's discuss Search Soul's abilities. Its first ability, unfortunately, can't be used, as Search Soul usually removes the invis or pop-up status on enemies when it's activated, which is useless seeing as my opponents won't be in those states when a battle starts. The second ability of Search Soul, however, is the important one, perhaps important enough for me to make a separate video about it. Search Soul gets the Chip Shuffle ability, which lets you shuffle the chips in your custom window up to 3 times per turn. This can make it a lot easier to find combo pieces in your chip folder, and I decided to base the rules of this run on that ability. Speaking of the rules, let's just quickly go over those. As always, I'll be starting the run on a fresh save file of BN4 and playing until I defeat the first duo fight. I'll have the Search Soul patch card active for the entirety of the run, keeping the soul active at all times in exchange for that annoying HP bug. As for the chips that I'm allowed to use for the run, I decided to go with a unique rule. For this run, I can only use program advances to deal damage. This ties in with the Chip Shuffle ability, as it should help me find the individual chips I need for my program advances. The key word there being should. Lastly, invis, barrier, and recovery chips are banned as always. However, since Searchman himself has the pop-up ability, I decided to allow those chips for this run. A chip that's only available from battle mystery data in the international net areas. I'm sure that won't cause me any issues in the future. So, I begin the run in a similar situation as the Wood Soul run. I have a starting folder that has no offensive capabilities, as I don't have access to any program advances yet. However, what I do have is an actual useful charge shot this time. The scope gun attack can hit enemies anywhere on the field and deals 50 damage, so it's extremely helpful early on in the game. Of course, the first program advance I got access to was Life Sword, as you could get a copy of Longsword S from this blue mystery data in the Elect Tower comp. But seeing as my scope gun is so good this early in the game, I didn't really need Life Sword just yet. I also made sure to pick up a copy of Cannon C from the Town Area 3 shop to give myself access to Giga Cannon, though I don't even remember if I used it in any important fights. And after getting through the early Shademan scenario and the first tournament prelims, I got to move directly into the first tournament of the game, where I took on Tetsu in the first round.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Since the scope gun is so much better than the Wood Soul tornado attack, I was able to get through the first series of fights in the scenario with no issues, even finishing off the last of the single Navi encounters with that Life Sword. Unfortunately, fighting 3 heal Navis at a time is a bit tougher than fighting 1 Navi and a virus, so I of course do end up getting deleted in this gauntlet. That's 2 and 3 also both happen here, since I can't dodge attacks while my scope gun is being fired, the only weakness that attack has. Luckily, I had a great way of getting revenge for those 2 deaths. The battle against Tetsu is, unsurprisingly, pretty straightforward. An area grab at the start makes it so that he can't hit you with his Hero Sword attack, and since his Navi only has 300 HP, it only took 6 scope guns to finish off that fight. Round 2 was of course the mandatory Chisao pretends to get kidnapped because he's a little asshole scenario of the game. Hold on a second. Yes! Yes! Okay, who cares about Chisao right now? After 10 runs in a row where I faced off against Top Man over and over again, I'm finally getting a chance to battle Sparkman. But we'll get there when we get there. For now, let's take a look at that 4, which happened in a battle that I only needed to take part in thanks to Chisao being a brat. Gutsman on the other hand got obliterated thanks to Chip Shuffle giving me a turn 1 Life Sword, which let me finish him off after 2 scope guns. Which means that, for the first time in these runs, I finally get to take on Sparkman. Yes, you're right, Lan, you haven't battled this guy before. Now, the good news is that this scenario is perfectly safe, as you don't even need to go onto the net. In fact, here's how I usually get through this scenario, which just requires you to figure out a password by following clues given to you. Now, for the Sparkman fight, I decided to do something special at the request of one of my viewers. Rather than follow the usual program advances only rule of the run, I decided to get some sweet revenge against Sparkman by fighting him with the folder that his operator Terry had locked land into during the scenario. Joke's on me though, since I ended up getting deleted on my first attempt at that fight. Now, to be fair, I kind of wasn't playing seriously in that first fight against Sparkman. On attempt 2, I decided to stick with the same rules, using the folder Terry locked me into. However, the actual rules I was using were that I decided against using any chips at all, relying solely on the scope gun to defeat Sparkman. This went quite well the second time around, as I made sure to stay in my back column this time, where it would be much easier to dodge his Spark Wave attack. And after hitting 12 total scope guns, Sparkman went down in an embarrassing way. That's what you get for cheating, Terry. After completing the first tournament, the number of program advances in my folder increased, but this actually started causing me issues. With several program advances and no custom plus programs available yet, I would fail to find the chips I needed even with chip shuffle, a problem we can see clearly with death number 6. As soon as I got access to the Lotto Trader, I of course made sure to get myself the custom plus 2 program. And to end the night, I managed to make it through the entire Toy Robo segment of the game, with the only notable moment being Shademan dodging a Dark Sword once again. I really don't like it when he does that. On night 2 of the run, I started with the point collection prelim, where I of course ended up dying to the 10-point Virus Gauntlet. And then that 8 also happened in the same series of battles. Turns out that a folder full of just program advances is kind of bad against groups of viruses. After finally getting through that prelim, however, my first round opponent was once again Crusher. During that scenario, this stupid death, which makes no sense at all, happened. I have no explanation for that one. In the fight against Crusher, a very lucky chip shuffle gave me the H-Burst program advance on turn 1, letting me cut his HP down to half in an instant. On turn 2, I just used a couple of area grabs and continuously fired off my scope gun. This led into turn 3, where Chip Shuffle got me to my life sword, letting me take the easy win. My second round opponent in this run was Burnman. I don't know if I've even seen Video Man yet in these runs, but since I'm up against Burnman again, you guys know what this means. Me showing off with a perfect water buster. Don't worry about the fact that there is one fire left, implying that I messed up that one multiple times. For the battle against Burnman, I had a special program advance prepared in my folder. But more importantly, I had this rock cube chip ready to block off one of his burners, letting me stay relatively safe. Unfortunately, in my second custom window, Chip Shuffle didn't get me my instant win program advance, though it did give me yet another life sword. And of course, I ended up getting my bubble spread on turn 3 without even needing to use Chip Shuffle. Yeah, go figure. My last opponent in this tournament was Roll, an interesting battle since her speed can let her dodge my scope gun. Naturally, I did end up dying at the very end of the scenario, but let's be real here, that was a tough situation to be in. I would have had to move up to dodge both attacks, but I was more focused on dodging the falling rocks than I was about where the Shrimpy was at that exact moment. After my fun game of tag with Roll, I faced off against her in the tournament. On turn 1, I failed to get any PAs with Chip Shuffle, instead opting to use Area Grab and another Rock Cube to keep myself safe again. On turn 2, I still didn't get any... Wait, hold on. Rewind that footage real quick. play it slowly, and there. Yeah, Chip Shuffle gave me bubble spread there, and I shuffled it away right afterwards because clearly I was not paying any attention to what I was doing. Anyways, I ended up with basically nothing on turn 2 due to my stupidity, so all I was able to do was fire off my scope gun and continue to stay safe behind my rock cube. On turn 3, I finally got a program advance. It's a shame that it was just pit ring though, which did get a counter hit, but only does 200 damage total here. On the next turn, I did intentionally choose to ignore the life sword as I deemed it too risky to use since I'd have to step out from behind my emotional support rock. And finally, on turn 5, I locked in the H-Burst program advance, giving me the win against Roll. Thanks for the defense, Rocky. Last up on the night was of course Gutsman DS, and seeing as I was only using program advances in this run, yeah, I was a bit scared going into this fight. And he got off 2 area grabs. That's not worrying at all. Luckily, I did get bubble spread on the second turn, but that doesn't make up for the fact that my limited area made it impossible to dodge his falling rocks. Fortunately, on the following turn, I got my life sword and managed to hit it despite my low area as well as a scope gun to get the win. I feel like I dodged a bullet there. For my next stream, I started off the night confident that I would be able to finish off the run that night. As I said myself, today, we're actually going to be able to finish this run because unlike all the others, I don't have to go crazy getting chips, and I don't need to care about getting level 2 versions of chips either. That statement will end up cursing the run for the night, but we'll get there soon. For now, let's focus on the fact that bad things happen to Lan every time he travels internationally, even if this kidnapping is staged. As for the tournament prelims, this is where we can really start seeing that having a folder full of various program advances isn't exactly optimal. In this first fight during the prelim, I ended up not getting any of my advances until it was too late, causing death 11. I then died again to the next virus battle for the prelim, though to be fair, that's partially because I started the fight at 1 HP. The same goes for that 13 to the same virus battle, where I once again didn't get a program advance on turn 1. And then that 14. And that 15. Honestly, I think this is the worst time I've had in this prelim so far in all of my runs. After several deaths in a row to the same virus battle, I finally decided to leave the net and hop back on to reset my HP. And of course, as soon as I did this, the game finally decided that it should give me a program advance, letting me finally win that battle outright with H-Burst. Once I cleared the prelims, I checked to see who my first round opponents would be, and I got to avoid Polly in this run. But before fighting the Foot Bomb Navi, I decided to take some time to get the Sea Slider, just in case I needed it later on. Unfortunately, while running through the Nephrica area, I did experience that 16 when using Crackout at the worst possible time. I also decided to go into the Undernet even though I didn't technically need to go there, just to collect some HP memories. Of course, I ended up dying there, though to be fair, just a single death in the entire Undernet isn't horrible. Just kidding, I obviously also died to the aggravating Spooter and Cirkill 2 virus combo. That's a fair virus to fight in game 1, isn't it? Ironically, I got my revenge against the same fight with a turn 1 life sword just a few minutes later. At this point, I figured it was a good time to go after that pop-up chip that I mentioned earlier. You know, the pop-up that I said definitely won't cause me any issues. The only way to get that chip in the star code is through battle mystery data in the international areas. So to help me find them more consistently, I used the oil body program to force Volgear viruses to appear in Natopia area, since there's a virus encounter with 2 Volgears and a mystery data in that area. And if you think this helped me find pop-up chips, you'd be dead wrong. I started the hunt for this chip about an hour into my stream. I genuinely expected it to take no longer than half an hour. Unfortunately, the chances of a battle mystery data containing pop-up is only 1 in 8. And so, I would constantly get bug frags, the static chip, and a magnum chip before finally getting a single copy of pop-up 15 minutes after I started the hunt. Over the next hour, I only ended up getting 2 more copies of pop-up and died once in the process. And since I was slowly losing my mind from not getting a final copy of the pop-up chip, I decided to just move on in life and start the final tournament instead. In my first match against the Footbomb Navi, I didn't manage to get any program advances on turn 1, but did manage to get one of those pop-up chips I worked so hard to obtain. This did help keep me safe while I used my scope gun on the first turn. At the end of the turn, he unfortunately used Fanfare, which Search Soul doesn't target with its charged attack. He also used Blinder at the end of the turn just to add to the frustration. On turn 2, I got an area grab and a second pop-up, which got cancelled when I took an unnecessary hit while firing off my scope gun. But on turn 3, I found my life sword while shuffling my chips, as well as my final copy of pop-up. Sadly, I kind of stupidly used my life sword a bit too early, so the Fanfare ended up blocking the damage. That's a waste of a program advance. For the rest of the turn, I just kept using my scope gun and once again found absolutely nothing in my next custom window. So more charge shots for a turn, followed by a pit hockey on the next turn, which sadly didn't manage to finish the battle. The only thing that did go well in this fight is the fact that I luckily used my scope guns when I wasn't in his row, and I somehow managed to not die when missing this flame cross either, letting me win with one last charge attack. Next up for this run was Thunderman, which thankfully spared me from needing to go back into the undernet. Despite losing HP while walking on the net now too, I made it through this scenario deathless and took on Thunderman. And yes, you see that right. Rock Cube is preset once again. I'm not messing around with that cloud. On turn 1, I even managed to get Panel Grab and a Life Sword, so I had an excellent start to this battle. With Rock Cube keeping me safe, I wasn't worried about this battle and knew that I could even finish it off with just scope guns. Or I can find my second Life Sword on turn 2 for the immediate win. That's a good strategy too, I guess. So moving on to round 3, where I was up against Coldman. However, I decided to end the night before fighting him, as I had realized that I didn't have a Heat Breath K chip for this scenario. So much for finishing the run on 8-3. On the actual finale night, I started by dying to a Melody Virus. It's not a proper BN4 run unless a Melody Virus tells me to go fuck myself, I guess. Eventually, I finished the remainder of the Coldman scenario and finally started my battle against him. Oh look, I got my bubble spread without even using Chip Shuffle. Why can't the game always be this nice to me? Bubble Spread was the perfect start, as I can use it on the Ice Cubes Coldman spawns to guarantee a hit against him. Then, after 2 charge shots got him down to 400 HP, I found a clutch Rock Cube to protect myself from his White Breath attack, as well as the Area Grab and Life Sword combo to finish off Coldman and the final tournament. Following the end of the tournament, I of course needed to go into the net to stop Nebula's attack, only to experience a streamer moment. How much you guys want to bet this is going to be my 4th copy of Pop-Up? Wait for it. After spending over an hour the previous night looking for just 3 copies of this stupid chip, I of course ended up getting the 4th copy of it when I wasn't even trying to get it. That's pretty typical for this game. Naturally, I also decided to take on Coldman Alpha here, despite it being completely optional and having no reason whatsoever to do it, other than because it's free content. And seeing me nearly die on more than one occasion during the battle definitely qualifies as content in my opinion, as does defeating Coldman on my first try, getting me a chip that I can't even use. Before going into the Meteor comps to finish up the game, I did have to of course battle this Nebula Navi in the park area. But don't worry, nothing went wrong here, other than the Gaia EX virus knocking me out of my pop-up state, something that I didn't even know was a thing since I basically never used that chip. This of course trapped me in place, letting the Navi delete me with a bomb he had thrown as the hammer was coming down. I take no blame for that one, Gaia viruses are just dumb. And of course, I eventually made my way through the Meteor comps where I got to face off against Nebula's leading Wimp once again. On turn 1, I managed to get my trusted H-Burst, which of course landed for... Okay, so apparently he can do his move animation when he's already on the panel he was going to move to, which can cause attacks to just pass through him. That's fun, I guess. On turn 2, I pulled out the Beast Fang Program Advance for the first time, dealing some decent damage, though it would have done more if Laserman didn't have super armor. I also nearly died to a falling rock when I moved to dodge his big laser, but luckily I was fine. A death there would have been really embarrassing for me. In the following custom window, I failed to get any more program advances, as I had added an additional copy of Life Sword, which unfortunately had to be in the L code instead of the S code. But on the turn after that, I did manage to get a Life Sword, bringing Laserman down to about 80 HP, though he was healing since he had used his Dark Laser just before I landed the Life Sword. This however meant that with 3 more scope guns, I was able to take out Laserman for the 10th time in these runs. And so, it was finally time for the 2 finale battles. First up, my Dark Soul. Seeing as I have only been using program advances in this run, I didn't expect this to be an easy battle. And seeing as I got area grabbed once, missed my H burst again, and then got area grabbed a second time, yeah, not an easy battle. Fortunately for me, I did find a Life Sword on turn 2, but since I had taken area grab out of my folder for the duo fight, I knew it would take some patience before I could land my Life Sword, during which time he once again jump scared me with a Dark Sword, and then used his own copy of Pop-Up. I almost regret using that chip now. The good news is that Scope Gun pierces through Pop-Up, which let me get his HP down to below 50, and then I actually played it smart by wasting my Life Sword to get my own Pop-Up ready, keeping me safe while I charged up another Scope Gun for the win. And so, it was time to take on Duo once again, and I'll just quickly spoil this by letting you guys know that I did in fact end up fighting Duo multiple times. So let's start by going over the first Duo fight. I luckily started turn 1 with Chip Shuffle getting me one of my Life Swords, so we immediately got to chunk off a fifth of Duo's HP. I also stupidly took a hit here while I had a pop-up ready to go, because for some reason I decided to save it for the end of the turn. On turn 2, I dodged his big hook attack and then landed my bubble spread for another 300 damage. Turn 3 continued the trend of actually finding my program advances for once, giving me my Beast Fang, which I patiently used only when Duo used another big hook, letting me land every hit for 500 more damage. And I then immediately found my L code Life Sword. However, my HP was already running low, which meant that I needed to dodge every single attack to stay alive. And we know what my track record is on dodging Duo's attacks. Finally, on the next turn, despite having access to H-Burst, I decided to gamble and shuffle for one more Life Sword, which I did end up finding. I used Pop-Up just in case, and then of course, threw away my shot of winning, wasting Life Sword as Duo started using his laser. Don't we love when I do things like that? But since Duo's laser wastes a lot of time, I managed to get back into my custom window, find my final Life Sword, and finish off Duo without a single death, finishing up the run at a death total of 21. What, you thought I was gonna die in my first Duo attempt since I said I fought him more than once? Sorry, those of us in the YouTube business like to call that clickbait or something like that. Although I wasn't technically lying when I said that, since I did do another fight against Duo to see how Pop-Up works against him. It turns out you don't actually get hit by his big hook when Pop-Up is active, which makes literally less sense than ice panels doubling elect damage. Link to that video in the description. Meteor Knuckles on the other hand does hit while Pop-Up is active, so I'm really glad that Duo never went for that attack. Overall, I did enjoy playing this run. Limiting myself to only program advances definitely made it a lot harder than I had anticipated, as I had a lot of turns where I couldn't actually use any offensive chips, forcing me to rely on my charge attack. Ironically, I would say that the difficulty curve of this run was the inverse of the difficulty curve for the Woodsoul run. I had a really easy early game here, but a somewhat luck-reliant mid to end game. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for some more Battle Network content. After this run, I only have Junk and Wind Soul to play with, followed by a full Battle Network 4 run using the Dark Soul, all of which I'll be streaming both here and on my Twitch channel. And as always, thanks for watching.